From the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, to around the globe. You're listening to Shark Bite Biz, your exclusive place for business strategy, sales, marketing, and tech in the roaring 20s. And now, here's your host, David Strausser.
Hey, welcome to the newest episode of Shark Bite Biz. I'm your glamorous host, David Strausser, and this is your place to learn how to grow a business during complete chaos. We got a hot episode for you all today. More than one reason why it's hot. First, though, remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can join the channel, become a member, support Shark Bite Biz. For only $3 a month, you can become a baby shark. You can also go to our coffee brand, deadhousecoffee.com. We love zombies, we love sharks. But if you use the code SHARK, you get 20% off of your order, and all proceeds directly go to supporting this channel. Help us grow, help us make the biggest and best show we possibly can. Let's get back to today's show. It's a great show, as I was saying, and we're going to have an amazing woman on today who has done everything from acting to being on the cover of Playboy to being a Playboy Centerfold to being a top-notch, #1 selling real estate agent. Seriously, I don't know if there isn't something that our guest today hasn't done. Extremely impressive, and the amount of work that went into her career is impressive, with a resume that I think most people can only dream of. So, who is today's guest? Oh, so glad you asked. Deborah Driggs. From her start as a Playboy Centerfold and cover girl to her life as a Screen Actors Guild member and then a top-rated insurance industry professional, Deborah Driggs has had to clear many hurdles in life to make these things happen. While it may seem like success found Deborah easily, nothing could be further from the truth. Deborah's overcome a number of challenges to get where she's at today. Her willingness to take risks, maintain a positive attitude, and never take no for an answer helped her get where she's at. So, hey, I'm not going to delay any further. Let's bring Deborah on in here.
Personal growth.
Deborah, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. You just became Shark Bait.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm awake now. Yay.
There you go.
Well, thank you for having me. That's a good one. I haven't been Shark Bait before.
Yeah. It's one of those things that just came out naturally, one episode, and I just kept it from that point on.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Stick with what works.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a tradition on this show, and we always ask everybody, like, hey, we want to establish your credibility as far as why we should listen to the guest that comes on. And we like hearing about their background, their experience, what makes them an expert at what they do. And it's really interesting because you have quite the backstory. So why don't you tell us what makes Deborah?
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, let's see. Where do we start? I'm 57 now, so we could go all the way back to the beginning, or we could go, it's like, which version of Deborah do you want to know about? There's many.
Isn't that funny that you just said that? Which version? And
Yeah.
I think back at my life. I turned 38 tomorrow, by the way.
Oh,
best day of the year. Yes. I'm going to start putting #boomer in my profiles now. I'm kidding. But, I'm thinking, even with me just being 38, it's like, wow, how many versions of me have there been in my life? So when you're talking about somebody like you, I mean, there's a lot of different versions. You've done a lot.
Yeah. And that's the whole, that's called a life resume, right?
Yeah.
We have our business resume, and then we have a life resume. And
oh yeah.
And at my age now, it's all about the life resume. It's all about what have I accomplished in my life resume? Because the business part, that's all great, but really it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about the life. And yeah, that's why I asked, because I've worn many hats, I've had many experiences, I have, the credibility that I have, I guess, would be that I started out in the entertainment business as an actress and a model, and had success there, and then left, became a mom and raised a family, had success there. And then left, and then, did something, so I've worn all these different hats. I've had different versions of myself show up, really. People ask me today, I do a lot of Tony Robbins seminars. And I've been doing them since 2017. And I've had people say, did you just go to that? Why are you going again? And my response is always the same response, which is, well, I'm a different person than I was the last time I went.
Right. You kind of get something different out of it, right?
Exactly. And that's how I feel about my life. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. And I'm definitely not the same person I was in my 20s when I was embarking on aspiring actress career.
Right.
And so I'm not that, it's like my growth continues. And so I know next year I won't be the version that I am today. And so it's like we're continually growing. If we're not, then we're just like this. And I think we all know that can be pretty boring. So
the cliche goes, if you're not going forwards, you're going backwards.
Totally.
Even if you're staying stagnant, you're going backwards.
Yeah. You're just, and that's just like a safe place,
Yeah.
And so, I kind of like that. When you have people in your life, mentors and coaches, coaches are really good to have, because they are the ones that take you out of that comfortable zone. They put you in situations that are uncomfortable. So I always say, you better have a coach, because they're going to make you do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, no, it's
I
totally
had a coach
true.
that made me do things that were completely out of my comfort zone. And, but that's where the growth takes place. And so, you have to have your coach, you have to have mentors, people that, you really look up and you want to get the clues from what they're doing. They're the ones that'll tell you really the real deal of what's going on. And then you want to have your cheerleaders, people cheering you on, saying, you could do that. I could see you doing that. Instead of, that's impossible. Everybody's trying to do that. You know how many podcasts there are?
You know what? That's exactly
actresses there are?
Exactly what I was going to say. I think people that listen to this show know exactly what I went through, as far as I registered the name. I guess it would be 6 years ago now that I registered Shark Bite Biz. And I always wanted to do a podcast, but my reasoning was, you have those negative people that it's good to have enablers if they're enabling you to be better. And I had the negative ones that were like, dude, there's a million business podcasts out there. Why are people going to listen to you? And I never did it out of fear. I actually did live events, and I did anti-luncheons out in LA at the City Club. And it was cool, like we'd serve dessert first. I'd have people like William Hung from American Idol, the She Bangs guy, as the keynote speaker, because they were different types of speakers that made you think about different things. People loved them. So I went that route instead of the podcast. It was only when I was forced into a corner because of COVID and not being able to find a way to grow professionally, to grow my network, that I ended up doing the podcast. Like, okay, guess it's time for the podcast. And wow, I was so uncomfortable when I first started doing this. You should see how I was in episode 2 with my very first interview compared to how we are now. It was almost like pulling teeth. But, I took the feedback, and I do a lot of self-analyzation. So I kind of knew, like, hey, dude, you suck at this. You've got to fix this. You've got to fix that. And I tuned things up. It's something that I'm always learning and growing with. So I've got to ask you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's the whole point, really, of anything that you want to do in life, is if you think you're going to start out and be great at something, then you're going to be disappointed. It's like this could be day one, or, it could be like someday,
Yeah.
and everybody has to have a day one.
Yes.
I didn't start out, I look back on my figure skating life in that version of my life in my younger years, and I didn't get on the ice and I was just so graceful and I skated beautifully and I was doing tricks like right away, no, I was on the ground most of the time, falling, slipping, getting up, trying again. And it's called resilience. You just keep going and going and going. And eventually you get better. It's like professional athletes
you got to commit.
Yeah. They don't just show up on game night and go, I'm so great. No, they warmed up with 1,000 free throws because that's what makes them at the level where they are. And it's with anything in life. You can't just start out and be great.
Yeah.
Some people have great genes and start out really well. Talent, but still, even with that, they will hit.
You need to fine tune it. I've seen a lot of good salespeople over the years that, worked around me, either for me or a colleague. And it's like, dude, yeah, you do have natural talent, but you still got to fine tune that talent, And I think that sometimes is someone's greatest pitfall because they have that arrogance, like, you were born with it, you got the gift, but you feel like you don't have to master the craft because you were just born with it. And I think that's like a huge missed opportunity some people get.
Yeah, totally.
So what is your favorite version of you?
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite, but I think the one that's the most reliable and successful is the one that is consistent in my routine. The things that I do consistently is the version I like the best, because when I kind of slide off into a different, or I take something out that's working well, then it can take me down into a version of myself that isn't so fun to be around. Like just little things, I think, if you wake up with gratitude, it's really hard to have a bad day. If you wake up and you have a gratitude list, and I have vision boards and I have things that I look at and I go, oh yeah, just reminders, little things I do each day, take a moment, sit in silence. I have my meditation music playing 24/7. That's a reminder. I have to have those reminders, because if I just rely on this, and I go into tunnel vision and just try to work and get things done, it's a setup for failure, and it's a setup for frustration. So I think the version I like is the version that is consistent, works out, drinks green juice, gets plenty of sleep.
Yeah.
Tries to do something great for somebody else, gets out of my head about it's not all about me. And just try to live the best version of my life. I have a primary question and I ask it on a daily basis. I ask, especially when things come up, I'll stop and say, what would the best version of myself do right now?
Yeah.
And that is my primary question. It's like, what would the best version of myself do right now in this moment?
That's even making me think right there with what you're saying, because I try to do what you just said. Like, for example, last night, because I have a lot of different things I'm working on, and it was very hard to sleep. I'm pulling my hair out and I couldn't sleep, but I eventually did. But instead of waking up in the morning, worried or freaking out, it's smiling like it's another day. I'm happy. And it's like, let's go at it. But
I woke up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I woke up. But I try to think about it like doing the right thing, making the right choices. But I really like how you phrased it there. Like, hey, what would the best version of me do in this situation? And I think that kind of adds another layer of depth into that thought that maybe I was kind of missing a little bit with mine.
Yeah, it's all, people always think they have to accomplish something that's so big. And I say that only because that's where my mindset was all the time. I'm going to ice skate. I'm going to go to the Olympics. I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to win an Academy Award. I'm going to do adventure racing. I'm going to win a marathon. It's like, it goes from 0 to 100 really quick for people that are leaders, perfectionists, and it's why we become successful, because we can't stop until we get to these goals that we set. But the thing that I think, the lesson that I've learned in all my years, in all the different versions of things that I've done, is that it's in the little things where the lessons are. And people ask me all the time, what has been your biggest life lesson so far? And I would have to say that in my darkest, most horrible failures is where my spiritual and emotional growth really took place.
Yeah.
Not in my success. It took place when I was on my knees in a situation that I felt like such a failure, or I felt like I was in such a dark place and I was stuck and I couldn't get out. And that is where the growth, because now it's not comfortable. You
kind of get into survival mode.
Yeah. And it's easy to be all like, everything's great when you're successful and you have money and things are working well. And that's kind of like I said, you're kind of like right here, even keel. But the minute something shifts, that's when you really have to grow. Right. And you have to think, oh, this is different. Okay. You're either gonna rise to the occasion, or you're gonna just try and stay safe, I guess. So yeah, I think that's really important to know, that not to be so afraid of failures. You know what? I get them on a daily basis. Things don't always work out. I woke up on Monday thinking my day was going to go a certain way. And, Mondays, how Mondays are. Mondays are like that day where it's like, it's the start of the week. We're starting fresh. We've got the list, right? We've got the things, the tasks for the week. And my Monday went completely off tilt. And I was like, okay, I just sat and I went, okay, nothing's going in my direction right now. And you know what? It's okay. Because that's the beauty of being at my age with all my failures, that I go, you know what? It's okay. Guess what? Took everything off, got on my hands and knees, put on my meditation, and just said, okay, universe, God, energy, whatever you want to call it. I choose God, hey, God, it's in your hands right now. Like, I don't know why nothing's working out, but maybe I'm supposed to take a break right now.
Do you believe in that as far as the law of attraction goes?
100%.
Same here.
100%. I am really, really careful now of where my energy goes, where my language goes, where my thoughts go. Yeah. Because, that is the whole, when you really get into a winning mode, is because your emotions are not running the show anymore. Your mind is. You're in control of your mind. And before, in the past, when I was having failures, because my emotions were running the show.
That's one thing I think a lot of people struggle with, is that they make the emotional decision instead of the rational decision. It's something I used to struggle with a lot, very bad. And I really didn't start the skyrocket in business and sales and all that stuff until I'm like, okay, I need to just focus on business, get the personal life mojo out of there, and just focus on business. Because if I don't, what's going to happen is I'm going to be upset all day. I'm not going to be able to sell. And I'm going to have more problems, because on top of the personal problems I have, now I'm not going to have any money either. Yeah. So it was an awakening for me.
Yeah. And that's it. That when you have those awakenings, anything's possible, really.
Yeah.
It's like that. Whatever it takes to have that awakening, then anything is possible. And my hope, when I speak, or when I talk, or when my book comes out, is that younger girls, younger people, men and women, won't wait until my age to have that revelation, that they don't have to suffer so much. I spent too much time in a suffering mode, trying to figure stuff out. And it's so not necessary,
No, it's not.
And I wish somebody would have told me in my 20s, hey, Deb, if you just do this, this, and this, it's going to be so much easier. Instead, I was always like grinding it out,
Right.
And it's really not, that's not what it's about. You don't have to grind it out.
Right.
So that's my goal is to save people from doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you obviously did, play some of the right cards when you were in your 20s, because I do remember seeing, I don't know, I think it was a footnote on Wikipedia or something like that about the cover of some magazine circa April 1990.
Yeah. Yeah, I landed on the cover of Playboy 1990, April 1990. I was a centerfold for March 90, and then I was on the cover the following month, which was very unusual. And so I had quite the whirlwind experience. And I started my modeling in 1983. I was 20 years old, but I didn't look 20. I looked very, very young. I looked 15 really when I was 20. I looked like a little kid. And I started modeling in Japan. Mm-hmm. And I did commercial print and catalog and, nothing high fashion because I'm only 5'6". But when I came back to the US, I told everybody that I was going to model and do commercials. And they were, I got a lot of pushback, people were like, well, wait a second, you're not tall. Models are tall. And, and so I said, that's okay. I'm going to work. I know I'm going to work. I just felt it in my gut. Like I just knew. And I went and enrolled myself in a commercial workshop that no longer exists, but it used to be on Sunset Boulevard. It was a famous place called Tepper Gallegos. Okay. And I think it was 6 or 8 weeks. And at the end of those weeks, they brought in all these agents from all over LA, commercial agents.
Okay.
And they had us do a commercial in front of all the agents. And then the agents would decide if they were going to sign anybody from the workshop.
Yeah.
And, a couple of people got signed or nobody got signed. And I had that night, three or four of these agents come to me and talk to me. And the one that I chose, I just connected with, and I forget his name, but it was a guy from Pacific Artists. I remember the agency name, but I was a kid, so it's hard to remember all the details, but I signed with Pacific Artists. And then from there, I found Mary Webb Davis, which was an agency. And Mary Webb Davis was an old-time model. She had modeled her whole life. And she started this agency on La Cienega. And my agent there, her name was Vivian. She was from London.
Oh.
And
with those beautiful accents.
Yes. And so I worked with both of these agents, together, going on commercials and going on print work. And so I landed a few regular gigs. I worked for Ocean Pacific and Body Glove and did catalog work. I did Fedco catalog. I mean, I did everything. I was a model on the Fashion Channel, which was the first kind of cable network shopping channel. It was called the Fashion Channel before HSN, before QVC. And I was their regular model. And so that was a regular gig. That was like the first regular job that I had. And so I felt comfortable now in this career. And then in 1989, out of the blue, my agent at Mary Webb called me and she said, Playboy has a new book coming out. It's called The Lingerie Book. And they would like to see you for the cover. And my first question was, well, is there any nudity? And she said, I don't think so. This is for the cover. I mean, there might be a little bit because it's Playboy. So that's how I landed in Playboy. I went on that audition.
Right.
And went to the famous building on Sunset for an audition for something quite different. And when I left, I got a call saying, we'd like to test you to be a centerfold. And
so with that, though, I want to dig right there. I mean, what's kind of going through your mind? Because, I mean, Playboy, big deal, huge magazine. I mean, being a centerfold, I don't know how much today people think about it, but you go back to, 80s, 90s. I mean, that was
no,
huge.
1989, Playboy was the #1 magazine in the world.
Exactly. That is huge.
So, yeah, it was huge. And so when I had asked around, I asked all my agents and the people, I had a manager at this point, and I said, do you think this is going to hurt my career? Because back then, that was a situation. And I was doing all these, jobs that were, once I did Playboy, would probably not hire me again.
Yeah.
And so that was something I had to take into consideration. Today, nobody would care.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be you wouldn't think twice about it. And also back then, they were concerned about, do you have tattoos, piercings, birthmarks, scars, things that today would not matter at all either. And so it was a very different world that was out. There was no internet. I didn't know that 30 years later, all my photos would be online for the whole world to see. I thought it was, when I did it, I thought, oh, it's a special thing for subscribers of Playboy, for people who are Playboy fans. I didn't realize that, in my, when I turned 35, all of a sudden I'm all over the internet. And it was just like, that was something I was completely unprepared for, was to have the whole world then.
I'll tell you a funny story. Okay. That has to do with you. And I was telling my boss, because, this is my fun job with the podcast of Shark Bite Biz. My actual day job, in tech sales, I run the whole Northeast for a company. I was telling my boss, Alex, who's been on the show, he's fabulous. And I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I have Deborah coming out to the show. He's like, really? He's like, let me see it. Like, because he wanted to see what cover I was talking about, stuff like that. So I'm there and I go on Google and I hit, name, and I hit images, but I guess I got too detailed in my search and it's like, oh, I got to take that off. It was one of those not safe for work moments. So I could definitely relate with, what you're saying about that. How does that actually make you feel? I mean, is it something that you just grown accustomed to, that you accepted? Is it something that you regret, seeing how the technology has evolved since then?
Well, the thing that was a little bit difficult for me was I knew that I had signed over all my images to Playboy after I did my thing. What I didn't really agree to was the internet. There was nothing in my contract back then that said, and by the way, if there ever in the future is this thing called Google, you're going to be a part. Nobody knew what was coming. And so even though I signed away all my images, I kind of went back in 2008 and I said, hey, this doesn't feel right that all of our images, all the girls' images, Playboy sold. It was
they sold them.
multi-billion-dollar business to sell to all these companies to use. So you would see my image. So when I started researching where my image was being used, it was being used on all these soft porn websites or porn websites.
Right.
But what they were doing was they were using my image to get people into the site.
Okay. Yeah.
Thinking they were going to see me. But when you click on it, I disappear.
Right.
So I went through and I literally sent every single, it took me a month to do this, but I sent every link to Playboy that I was linked with. And they actually removed me from all those. I mean, we're talking hundreds.
Wow.
Because I said, this can't be right, guys. And I said, and by the way, you should be protecting us. Why would you want the girl next door Playboy images to be allowed to be used? So they said, please send us all the links. It took me weeks. I copied and pasted every single link. And I did this because I just felt like, because people would say, did you do porn? And I'd go, no. Can you imagine? I was a playmate and I shot that in 1989.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that was it. And now I'm showing up on hundreds. I'm talking hundreds of websites that have nothing to do with Playboy. And so we took it down. I mean, now it's maybe one or two will pop up, but I took down hundreds of sites that were using my images and my name. It was all fraud. And so,
like on one side, I think it's good because you did hear that Playboy acted and got it removed.
They did.
But on the other hand, they made you go out and do all the legwork. I mean, it is Playboy. They have the resources that they could have easily had an intern gather all that stuff up way easier than you.
Here's, I can play both sides of it, is that, you take one down and 10 more pop up. It's really hard to keep track of. And I can just tell you that between me and Playboy, I don't think the new girls care so much today's girl, because they're all over the internet.
Right.
But for me, it was like, I didn't sign up for all of this. And so, and by the way, Playboy agreed, because every time I sent them a link, they would send a cease and desist letter to those websites. And by the way, after a while, those websites disappeared. They were just these odd, really strange websites that were trying to make money. They made money because what would happen was they would use a playmate, not just me, get you to click in, and then it would cost money to go inside. And then once you got inside, I'm not there. They can't use, there's nothing to use once you get inside to whatever website.
Right.
And so
bait and switch.
And so that was the only kind of thing that was a little disappointing for me. But other than that, no, I don't care at all. Like, I know that my centerfold is going to show up online, and so I could really, at this point in my life, it's like that is such a minor thing to worry about.
Yeah, it did lead though to you having a pretty famous cover though, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to can you tell us exactly kind of how that formulated to the cover and the person that you were on the cover with?
Okay, so everybody gets this confused. So I am the centerfold March 1990. I missed March. And on that cover is Donald Trump and Brandy Brandt. But everybody thinks but this is what's so funny. Everybody thinks it's me, and that's okay. And I know Brandy would be very happy to let you know that she'd probably tell everybody, yeah, that's Deborah, that's not me, because she's not a fan of Trump. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But so what has happened, because he was president, that is now a collector's item.
Yeah.
And I receive more email, people find me online and reach out and ask if I could please sign the issue, because it's a collector's item now with Donald Trump being on the cover. I'm on the cover of the following month, April 1990.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that I think a lot of people get confused. So you were saying in that episode, you're the centerfold though.
Yes.
Right. So with that though, I mean, there's still a lot of correlation being the centerfold of that specific issue. So like during the course of that though, we don't get too much at the politics, but this is just really interesting. I mean, do you think with everything that's gone on with him and having that sort of connection to being the centerfold in that issue, do you think it kind of helped your career in a way, like the last couple of years for extra name recognition and stuff like that, or no?
Playboy hasn't helped my career in 20 years. Where it's become an interesting story is now that I'm writing a book. Now it's an interesting story because a lot of people that I do business with had no idea that I was in the magazine. And then when they found out, they were like, what? Because they, it's funny how when you meet somebody and you already have kind of like, you kind of think you know them, or you have a perception of them. And the minute people found out that I did Playboy, it was like, wait a minute. I can't wrap my head around this. You were a centerfold. And I'm like, yeah. And so that's when I thought, during the pandemic, when we had all this free time, I thought I'm going to write a book, because it is like you would never put the two together. What I do now, I sell life insurance, is not sexy And I've had so much success in my business life that to look back on the fact that I did Playboy, it is a very funny kind of, you would never put those two things together.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what makes it interesting and funny. But no, it didn't serve a purpose in my business life. I didn't, there's no way on my resume it said, and by the way, I was Miss March and you should hire me. Hey.
Yeah. No, I was kind of wondering, just because you said because of the politics with that, how people were hitting you up for the autographs on those.
It's just because he's on the cover now. Who would have known that my issue is a collector's item now?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome though. I've got that is really, really awesome, especially because it's happened so many years after you originally did that.
Totally.
And you're doing insurance. I mean, that's one of those cool. I tell you what, you got a pretty awesome conversation starter right there.
Right?
So let's talk about.
Bet. I mean, seriously, and here's what's even funnier is I can be in a meeting and I can tell if somebody in that meeting knows that I was at Playboy. I can tell because they're just waiting for the meeting to end so they can go right to, so what was it like? What was it like? What's Heft like? What's Hugh Hefner like? And I'm like, it's so funny. I can always tell when somebody's just dying to ask the question. Yeah.
So I guess we got two questions here because we do got to start getting wrapped up. One of the things is that you are in sales and you're extremely successful at sales. So can you give us some of the tools that you use to become the number one salesperson?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have things, I learned the hard way. Nobody taught me, I wasn't reading, now you can go online and read all these different things about sales and watch YouTubes and whatever. And I didn't have that. So I learned the hard way. But one thing I can say for sure, and I coined the phrase in my world, is no means maybe. And anybody in sales knows that you could make 100 calls and maybe get one maybe or one yes. And if you are going to go into sales, you have to know right away that that's the mentality that there would be days that I didn't hang up the phone until I had at least a prospect of a maybe or a yes. And it's a numbers game. It's a total numbers game. And it's also about building, I know that people want to do business with people that they trust and they like, and they want to hang out with, really. So as it turns out, a lot of the people that I do business with that are in my life that do insurance with me, it's because we're friends and they like me and they're curious about what I do. Most of my clients in the beginning were women, because the first people that I called were my friends. Yeah. And I said, I hope you have enough life insurance, because God forbid there's an unexpected life event. Yep. You could be in a pinch. And so then they'd sick their husbands on me and say, you've got to go talk to Deborah. We need more life insurance. And so that, that's how I built my business. And I think you start with your contacts and you use them wisely. I wrote everything down. I kept notes. I followed up. Today, a lot of people just don't follow up. They'll try to sell you something and then you don't hear from them. And in my case, there's a lot of follow up. There's a lot of, guess what? There's a new product that I think you would be interested in. Oh yeah, maybe we should add this to the portfolio that we've started with you or whatever. And so, we just do things a little bit different. It's more of a white glove client approach, a little bit of like incremental sales as well too, right? Because you've got to build a relationship, right? If you really want to have a client. And in my business, it's a little tricky because I don't do any marketing. I don't do any advertising. It's it's reputation and referral business for me. Everybody, I get referrals. I'll have people text me randomly. Are you still doing insurance? Because I have a referral, and that's always a huge compliment. Mm-hmm. But for me, it is a hustle when you're not using advertising. You're not advertising your company. We don't have a big internet presence. But what we do have is we have these very solid relationships with all the carriers, mm-hmm. all the underwriters. And because of that, we've built that reputation that we don't work for the insurance company. We work for the client.
Oh, yeah.
And we have that reputation. And so that reputation kind of speaks for itself. And so we get lots of referrals that way. But I would say that, it's a relation. Sales is a relationship business, mm-hmm. and your relationships are everything. And you're not here to get anything. You're here, I know you want to get the sale, but really mm-hmm. what's more important is what you're giving to the client. Make sure you love what you're selling.
Yeah.
If you don't love what you're selling, you're going to have a real hard time. It's going to be a struggle.
Yes, definitely 100%. So the last question I want to ask you then is about your book. You've mentioned a couple times that you're writing a book. What's your book going to be about?
It's going to be about everything that we just spoke about. It's going to be about how did a Playboy cover girl go from being on the cover of Playboy to being in the top 5% in the life insurance industry. How two completely opposite. It's like New York and LA. They're completely opposite. Yeah. It's like the opposite side of the coin. And, and how did I do that? And really, at 40 years old, I pretty much lost everything. I lost my marriage. I had no money. I'm raising 3 kids, and I had to go back to work. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really know what that meant. I'd grown up in the entertainment business since I was 20.
Right.
Left really in 2000 and was a full-time mother. And so did not know how to work in an office, didn't know how to scan, didn't know how to fax. And so at the age of 40, I was like embarking on a new journey, and it was not easy. And so that's really what the book is about. It's like when you go to embark on a new journey and you go into unfamiliar territory, it is not easy. And so, mm-hmm. and I know there's a lot of people right now, especially after this last year that we've had, that have lost their business, have lost everything. And I get that. That happened to me. So I get it.
Right. So did you ever think about getting back into the entertainment business, or did you hey, I'm done with that, I want to do something new, and that's where you went on the insurance route? How'd that end up?
Going back to the laws of the universe, I never say I'm done with that, because if I say that, then I'm done with that.
Then you're done.
No, I'm open to all possibilities. I think there's so many opportunities available to people today, and the abundance is all around. And so, no, mm-hmm. I'm completely open to anything is possible. And so I think that's why I've allowed myself to embark on guesting on podcasts and getting ready to launch a new website. And I'm going down a road that's very unfamiliar. I've never had to create. I've always been kind of part of a creation, so to speak. I've always been hired to help with a creation, with a movie project, with a TV mm-hmm. project, with a video. I was hired to help in that. And now I'm creating something, and it's a totally different new ball game. And so, I'm completely starting from scratch, and it's amazing. I love it. For a lot of years, I was living in this fear of, I'm too old to do that. Oh my God, mm-hmm. I'm in my 40s and I'm starting all over. How can that be? And, just the language again, what I was telling mm-hmm. myself. Now I'm like, hey, I'm 57. Life's just getting started. The opportunities are endless. The abundance is all around me. I'm solid. This is all working. Yeah.
A lot of people on this show that are around your age, or we've had people that are older, and they're like, well, the thing is that, I did something, I wasn't really happy with it. I did it for 40 years. And then I was just like, the heck with it. I want to do what I want to do, and I want to be me. Did a total career transformation, and they're loving it. And they're like, it's awesome.
I have this this idea that I have probably had so many $1 million ideas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I call them they come and you're like, yeah, that would be but because I was in a story of I could never do that, or I'm too old, or somebody else will do it, or it's already being done. I would stop myself. Now I'm at this point where I'm like, well, if I don't do it, somebody's going to do it. So I might as well do it. And by the way, if I fail, awesome. Then I have even something more to talk about. Guess what?
Yep.
I tried to do this and I completely flopped and failed and it was horrible. And you know what? It's like being on the internet and having haters. You got to love the haters, because the haters are what keep you going. They momentum you. It means that you are doing something that they want to do.
Yep.
So
totally agree.
And I'm like, I don't want to leave the planet going, God, I wish I would have done that. I should have done it. I can't live like that. That would just bum me out. It's like, I'm like, okay, I got this. You know what I mean? And it's you
I just started my own business. Well, technically the podcast, I made it an official business. It's Dead Brands LLC. Yeah. And then I have the podcast Shark Bite Biz.
I want to change that name, by the way.
Well, I like it because the other part of the business is Dead House Coffee, which is a zombie themed coffee, because, you wake up in the morning, you're a zombie, you drink your coffee. So it's Dead House Coffee, get back to life. And I've always wanted to kind of operate my own business. And it's, now's the time. Let's just do it. And I'm going to have a loss this year probably, but I'm hoping to set myself up for next year to be king,
There you go.
It's something that I just needed to get that out of me. Absolutely. Because that's the only regret I have, for this point, up until this point in my life, is that I'm not in control of my own financial situation, I guess you can say, because I don't own my own business. And now I do. I have 2 jobs, so it works out pretty good. But hey, you have an amazing story. This has been an awesome, informative, far-stretching interview. Thank you so much for coming on here. How can people reach out to you?
DeborahDriggs.com.
Okay.
Is going to be my website. It's launching in a few days.
Okay.
And Instagram at Deborah Driggs. All my journey is on Instagram. Everything that I do is, and all social media, it's my name at Deborah Driggs. And on my website, everyone will be able to get in touch with me.
Yeah, we'll have the links down in the description below, whether you're on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're at. You look down in the description, you'll see the link. Deborah, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time. Yep. All right. Bye-bye. Cheers. Thank you. Cheers.
Wow, what an amazing chat with Deborah. First, though, you all know the routine. If this interview gave you the warm and fuzzies, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. But if you really want to do this a solid, okay, share this out. Share this to your network on LinkedIn. Share it out on Facebook. Share it out on Twitter. I would love nothing more than Deborah Driggs and Shark Bite Biz trending. Now let's get back to our rock star guest, Deborah, okay? Because that really, really was a great conversation. And something that I kind of pride myself on with these interviews is that I try to have discussions about real stuff. I try to have personal conversations with the people, even if it's the first time I've ever met that person, like the case I just had with Deborah. I try to have some real conversation with every single person that comes on. I try not to ask them all the same questions that they get asked every single time, like, hey, how was it to work for Playboy? Which you can easily find if you Google any of the other interviews I do. I try to pull out information from a different perspective. I hope you all like it. I mean, if you don't, shoot me an email, leave a comment, let me know. But I try to get those topics with a different spin on it, because I think my job with this podcast is to get you to grow personally, professionally, and help you grow your business. And I feel that I can best do that when I don't ask for the same old. When I try to do something a little bit different and try to look at things through another lens for you all and ask things a different way. So I hope you all appreciate it. Let me know. That would be great. But one of the other top things that Deborah did say early on in the interview, is to do things outside your comfort zone. I think everybody already knows this. And she said she had coaches that had her do things that she pretty much despised. She did it all, though. Why? Because like Deborah said, that is where the growth takes place. And that's so true and worth a reminder for you all every now and again. Feel uncomfortable. That's exactly me as a podcast host. I said it there during the interview, too. Look at the early episodes and qualities. Now that we've done 94 episodes, I think that we're finally starting to get somewhat good. Pretty, flatted out the ups and downs with quality, a few kinks every now and then. But for the most part, we got it down. I've learned how to be a podcast host, I hope. If I haven't, leave me know, shoot me an email. But I think we have, and I think we're doing pretty darn good. And I love doing the podcast. But I really, really, really dislike being on camera and hearing my own voice. And I had to force myself to be uncomfortable. And look at the growth I've had over the course of the past year. I'm telling you, forcing yourself to be uncomfortable, to doing things outside of your comfort zone, it works, okay? The next thing she said is, what would the best version of me do? And wow, that is amazing. Seriously, I mean, that's pretty deep once you start thinking about it. I've heard of, hey, what would Jesus do? What is that? WWJD. But I haven't heard it in the terms of, what would I do? What would the best version of me do? And that's really amazing. And I think that's an awesome philosophy to live by. Going forward, I'm going to start doing that in my life as I make choices. I've said a million times, keep one eye on the future and one eye on the present. Today's choices will define whether or not you arrive to that future destination. And I think making choices in this spirit, in the what would the best version of me do spirit, would be amazing to help you achieve our dreams. To check mark every bucket list item I can think of, I think using Deborah's method right there is going to help me achieve it. That is seriously amazing stuff. Last thing I just wanted to kind of mention is that she was talking about basically protecting your IP, her IP, her images. I mean, technically, I guess they're Playboys, but it's a little bit different because it is an actual picture. It has her in it and, naked. So it is IP, okay? And it sounds like Playboy, rightfully so, was protective over the women that has graced its pages over the years. And they would protect her image and, send out the cease and desist orders to protect all the models like Deborah. And that is pretty cool. But the message there that I'm getting is she had to go out, do the legwork. She had to give them a list of all the sites that were violating her rights of you. And Playboy went out and they did the cease and desist order. Okay. That was Deborah protecting her IP. Now, when she was on the covers and the centerfold in 1990, she didn't think it would be all over the internet like it is today. So, a little bit different. I get it. But as a small business, you need to be very protective of your image, your ideas, your livelihood. And, think of it in the context of what Deborah's doing. Just make sure you get out there, protect it. Protect your work. Do not let anybody steal from you or rip you off, because in this digital age, it is so easy. So question of the day. Deborah did many things that most would consider bucket list items. What's yours? Leave a comment down below on YouTube. Do you want to be on the show? If so, shoot me an email, interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. Don't forget, join the channel. It's $3 a month and you can become a baby shark. Or Go to deadhousecoffee.com, use code SHARK, get 20% off your order, and you help support this channel. I'm David Strausser, and this is Shark Bite Biz. We'll see you all next episode. Cheers!
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.